Welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast, the resource for transitional and experienced genealogists who want to create a successful business. I'm your host, Miriam Pierre-Louis. Here you'll learn from professionals all around the world who work in the field of genealogy. Are you ready to get started? Then let's get going. This podcast is sponsored in part by the Association of Professional Genealogists. You can find out more about them at www.apgen.org. Welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast. Today we head to Germany to get to know genealogist Ursula Krause. Ursula, welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get started by having you tell us about yourself and give us an overview of your genealogy business.
Well, I'm German, obviously. I live in Berlin. My company is called Rootseekers, Research and More. So I'm a researcher, but I'm also a story writer. I write immigrant biographies. I give lectures in Germany, and I do some kind of consulting, genealogical consulting for journalists or filmmakers or such.
Oh, that's very interesting. We're going to have to dig into that a little bit. But first, before we dig into the journalist consulting, tell us, I know from your biography on your website and on the APG website that you lived in the United States for a while. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we moved there when I was 5 years old. So I attended kindergarten there and first and second grade, and then we moved back. My father was with the German Army, and he went there to the American Armor School in Fort Knox, Kentucky. So I don't really know what he did there, but he wore a uniform and we lived on post there. Yes, so then I came back and I was 8 years old and I was the first foreign student in our school and needed to learn German first.
Really? So you were speaking all English when you were in Kentucky?
Yes.
Interesting.
I'm very thankful for that. And my parents also saw to it that we kept it alive. So I've been speaking English all of my life, really. We always had English newspapers at home. And so I'm very lucky, very lucky.
Wow, that's wonderful. Most people come to genealogy from another profession. What were you before you decided to become a genealogy professional?
In my first life, I was a lawyer, in-house lawyer, which was very boring and simply not what I really felt like doing. So I went back to university and studied cultural sciences and history and languages. And then more and more I felt like doing genealogy. And I started doing more and more research in my family. And then it kind of struck me that genealogy is what I wanted to do. So here I am.
Do you have a tradition in your family where family history is very important? I'm curious about the German point of view of family history because, you know, Americans are so focused on family history because so much of our family comes from somewhere else. But when you live in Germany, you're sort of where your family's been for a really long time. How does your family and how do typical German families perceive the idea of researching their own family history?
In general, I can say genealogy is not something that is so popular over here. Actually, hardly anybody knows what genealogy is. So there are very few people really doing research. But of course, we all know the stories of where we come from. No, not all of us, but many of us. And I was born into a family of storytellers, and I grew up with my mother and my grandmother telling the stories of their childhood and their ancestors. And also we have a lot of written material about my family. We're very lucky to have that because most of the records were destroyed in World War II. They come from an area which is Poland now. So we don't have any kind of records there, but we have guest books and a chronicle and loads of stories. But from my father's side, I hardly know anything because they didn't talk. I know most of it from the family, from that part of the family that emigrated to America and kept these stories, which is interesting. So I really had to start from scratch from that side. But from my mother's side, it was always stories. Whatever we did, my family had a story to go with it. So I was simply born into it, and there was I'm addicted to family stories. So I just felt that I should continue in that tradition.
So on your father's side, you're German, and am I hearing you correctly that on your mother's side, you're Polish?
No, they're German. They were
Okay.
German. But they lived in a part that is called Neumark, which is now Poland. It's just on the other side of the border of the river Oder, which is the border between Germany and Poland.
And have you reached out and been in contact with any of the descendants who went to the United States from your family?
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's
yes.
excellent.
They always kept in touch, actually. So it was my great-grandmother's brother, or two brothers, who emigrated, and both of them kept in touch.
Through those generations, they maintained that contact.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting.
And my cousins of the same generation, two of them studied in Germany and visited.
When it comes to professional genealogists in Germany, I'm guessing that people who are going into that profession are entering it through history, really, through an interest in history or through studying history, and it's the interest in history that's leading them perhaps to starting a business that relates to genealogy.
Yeah, I think there are many historians and archivists as well, librarians, and many of them who simply kind of stumble in like I did.
Who do you get together with? Who do you network with when you want to talk genealogy in Germany or history? Who do you, and you want to meet somebody for coffee or you want to go to a meeting? Are you going to be meeting with genealogists, historians, archivists?
Well, we are so very few, and many of them only do air research, which is not what I do. So it's a kind of different business. But we do talk on the phone, and we meet every once in a while. You know, you just meet at the archive and have a cup of coffee. Well, you simply stay in touch, you know, send emails, and if you have a question, if you need help, support.
So it sounds like informal networking.
Yes, you need to. I mean, we're so very few, and when you start your business, you simply need to ask questions every once in a while because there are no rules. You know, you're kind of thrown into nothing, and then you just need to see how to do things.
What about the genealogical community in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in Australia? Do you reach beyond the borders of Germany? Are you in communication with people in other parts of the world?
Yes, I am. I have some genealogists in Canada and the United States, who I also do business with. So every once in a while they have a case, so they either send it to me or I just get the records for them. And it's very good working with Americans. And also through the APG, you get a lot of information, webinars and other educational opportunities. The genealogical world in America is so much further ahead than we are and so different from ours. So it's important just to stay in touch and get the newest information.
Would you go to a conference like Who Do You Think You Are in London? Would that be something that you would make a priority in your career?
I haven't really thought about it. I do go to the German conferences, but I haven't really thought about going. I think if I would go to the U.S. to go maybe Rootseekers or some of the big events.
Well, in 2015, of course, they're doing a combined Rootseekers FGS conference, so that should be some good incentive out in Salt Lake City. So you're studying history and languages, and you decide that you want to make a career of this unusual field of genealogy. What did you do to prepare yourself to become a professional genealogist, both from an educational point of view and from a business skill point of view?
Well, first of all, I took classes, how to run your own business. And we have this great opportunity in Berlin. It's from a big governmental investment bank. And they have a kind of a competition. So you go there once a week and take classes in bookkeeping and marketing and you name it. And then you write a business plan in the end, and then you kind of enter a competition, which is very hard if you enter into a competition and nobody really understands what you're doing because nobody knows what genealogy is. But it's been very helpful. I really learned a lot just regarding the business skills. And from a genealogical point of view, I did research. Research. And you learn with every day.
Now, you obviously had some skills before you started your business because you were a lawyer, and there are some very good skills associated with that. What skills do you think you brought into your business, and how have they helped you?
I think it's mainly the analytic skills. It's this way of thinking. It's this taking things apart and putting them back together again. It's the diligence. It's this taking your own initiative. It's also knowing the rules and regulations, which isn't too bad in Germany because there are plenty of rules and regulations. And it's the love for language, not only the ability to speak language, but it's also this love of putting things onto a piece of paper. So I think it simply is the love of thinking, so to say.
Now, you already mentioned that you took these classes on how to run your own business. What particular skills did you lack when you started your business, and how did you overcome that? And obviously, the course was part of that, but give us some examples of some things you didn't know how to do, and you had to figure out how to do them in order to make your business work.
Well, of course, there was this tax thing, which was very, very hard because the tax authority did not believe that you can make a living as a genealogist. So I always had to prove that I could. And then I got a tax accountant. So I did some outsourcing, so I didn't really have to cope with these kind of questions, and they did everything for me. I found bookkeeping itself is easy, but this financial planning, that's something that you just have to learn and get used to. That's what I found hard, but I learned. That was the main thing.
Can you share a specific obstacle that you encountered early in your career and how you worked around it? Maybe a project that didn't go right, or client communication that went awry, something like that.
I don't really think there were any obstacles. Maybe some difficulties, but very often it was that I had the wrong idea of how things work. And then it turned out that I just had to rethink and learn.
Can you give me an example of that? What exactly do you mean?
For example, time. How much time do you need for certain things? How do you do the proposal? How do you write a proposal? And how do you deal with that you need more time, or you did not deliver what you wanted to deliver because it took more time, and these things. But I just worked on it, the more experience you get, the better it gets.
Now, Ursula, where do your clients come from? Are they mostly Americans, Canadians, Australians? Where I imagine that you're not doing genealogy for Germans.
Very few. I have very few German customers, but yes, my focus is on the U.S. I have Canadian and Australian, South African customers. So, and from England as well.
And how do your clients find out about you? Do you rely on your website, or do you actually reach out to German groups or something?
Well, I'm a member of the Southern California I hope I get that right.
Maybe it's the Sacramento German Genealogical Society that publishes the journal, The Blumenbaum.
Exactly. And I have my own column there, which is called Ask Ursula. And I do writing. I write every quarter of a year. And so it's very interesting. And I get a lot of clients out of that. And also through Facebook.
Interesting.
So I don't put in any ads or so. They come to me. They find me.
On Facebook, are you interacting in groups? Or
yes.
Is it just the friends that you have on Facebook?
Well, I have Rootseekers, of course, has a page. And then I'm a member of many groups. First of all, the German Genealogy group, which is very active. And whenever I have time, I help people there answer questions and help them with their research. And then I also have two groups. I'm an administrator for two groups. And one of them is the Berlin-Brandenburg Genealogy Group, which is bilingual. And then I have a German group only, which is Latin, translations from Latin into German.
When you started taking clients, and these clients from other countries, Did you have to go through a process of sort of culturally understanding your clients? I know that you were in the United States when you were young, but it's a different thing when you're a business and you're working with clients. Even just Americans working with Americans can be a challenge. Did you have to learn kind of the personality of each country that you work with?
Yes, of course. And also for me, it's very important to be in touch with the client, to really get to know my client a little bit. I always say it's not about names and numbers, it's about people. So I need to get in touch. I need to know who I'm dealing with and who they are and what it is, what they really want. So I try to get to know them before really starting a project. And just by sending emails, and you get a sort of idea of who they are and the expectations they have. But I was very lucky. I have so wonderful clients. I mean, it's real. I am blessed. So that has never been a problem.
So you took a chance and started this business, and in a field where even the tax man has no idea what you do. Tell us about that moment in your business when everything started to come together and you started to feel really confident and really happy about the direction you were heading.
I think I always knew. I think I was always very confident. Of course, it was in the beginning, you have few customers and little money, but I always felt that this is what I want to do and this is going to work out. There was never any doubt that it wouldn't work. So I didn't really have this moment. I think I had this moment when I knew this is what I'm going to do. And from that moment on, I knew this is what I'm going to do and it's going to work out fine.
Now, do you do this work full-time or part-time?
Full-time.
Let's talk about some of your services. You have a really interesting mix of services. And I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into. So one of the things you offer on your website is writing stories for people who have German ancestors. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the main idea was that if you just give a name and a number, it doesn't really give any information, really. I mean, what is it, a name and a date of birth if you don't know the circumstances of how they grew up? And the social history of this very town and of Germany, and why they might have left, the reasons for leaving your country, your family. And German social structure, so to say, is so different from the country, from these young immigrant countries, and the way of thinking. And I wanted to give them a really picture of their ancestors to make them, in a way, come alive, so that they could understand where they came from. I mean, our ancestry, it's a kind of identity for us as well, what our ancestors did and who they were. And I wanted to give some part of this identity to them. So that was really the idea behind it.
Do you focus on a particular time period? Because I imagine the motivations would be different, from the 1700s or from the 1800s or from the 1900s. Do you specialize in one particular time period, or are you willing to look at a broad time frame?
Yeah. When I started, I thought I would focus on the 19th century, and I still do. But I more and more do work from the 1920s and also from the Third Reich, which I actually didn't really want to do when I started business. And I ended up doing it, and I really do enjoy it. And that's a very different work from doing research in the 19th century. But it's mainly because of privacy law. So you have to think differently. You have a different approach and different records. And every once in a while, it's hard to deal with because, of course, if you work with the Holocaust, it's very painful. But it changes. My focus changed. And I feel that's very exciting, very positive.
Give us a sense of when you do one of these stories of somebody's ancestor, what kind of information are you including? What are they learning about their ancestor?
It very much depends on what I already have. If it's been a research project and we already know a lot about the family, and then I just go into local history and write about that, and also reading the church book, of course, gives a lot of information. The church book is the best history book there is for this very town. So I already, when doing research, I already have a picture of this person. So I kind of just only put that down, this way of really going down to what happened in this town and what did they see, what did they have to go through. Sometimes I don't have very much information, especially for women. And then I have to go work a bit more with fiction. So what do I know about a woman's life in that period of time and in that very area? How was her life? And then I go and see, do I have any sources that might give further information? So that it's very different. Women's stories are different from men's stories.
Okay, so you're focusing on individuals or on families?
I think more on individuals, but of course, it's also always the family is involved. I mean, that's you can't do without. But especially with women, I try to women. They were always in second place, so I try to focus and make them more seen, so to say. So they're always number one in my stories, I guess.
In the beginning, you had mentioned doing some consulting for journalists and media. Tell us about that.
Well, I did one project, amongst others, for a young journalist from Boston for a film called The Upside Down Book. I did that together with another German genealogist, and it was mainly about how to handle German history today. It was not only the research part, but it was how do I approach Germans with this history, with the information I want to know from them. And it's a bit tricky talking to Germans about their own time or the family in the Third Reich. It is first now that we are opening and talking about it. So that's a bit tricky.
Okay, so the journalist was doing a project where they needed to interview Germans about 20th century history?
It was about a book, about the Mein Kampf, actually, who ended up in a Jewish household in Boston. And she wanted to know who owned this book and wanted to get in touch with the family. And now it's not very popular to own this book. I mean, nobody does in Germany nowadays. And so it was hard to approach people with this project.
That's interesting. So the people in Boston who owned the book had a name or something inside the book that gave them a clue who that's a really interesting
exactly
approach
so it's
to
a
history.
documentary, and it even won a film festival in America. So it's a wonderful film, and people can find the link on my blog, on my website.
So it's called The Upside Down Book, right?
Yes.
So that's really neat. So you were consulting to the journalist how to approach the German family about this book.
Yes, I made her understand what German history did to us, so to say.
That's fascinating and important. Did the journalist have success? I mean, obviously the film was made and there was an award, so I'm assuming that they were able to gently and tactfully engage the other family?
Yes. And that's also what the film is about, is how they get in touch and how they correspond and how they talk to one another. And it's this family lore that then turns out to be something totally different. I think it's like a journey she took. And it's really a great film.
I think I'm going to have to check that out. You had mentioned already you do a column for the German genealogy group. Do you do any other writing?
Well, I write on my blog. I have my own blog where I write short stories of my own ancestors. Where I'm now working on a project called Cousins, where I take one family and look in which direction every cousin went, who all started living in the same area and then went out into the world, so to say. And it's very interesting for me as well.
And did you mention public speaking as well at the beginning?
Yes, I give lectures. So usually I give lectures on how to do genealogy and computer genealogy. But I will now go more into, yes, the impact of history on us and the identity, how to form your identity with the help of knowing where you come from, looking into your ancestors' lives and such.
And are you doing that lecturing in Germany? Or
Yes, yes.
So maybe you'll create an interest in genealogy in Germany, huh?
I really do hope so. And there is more and more interest, especially younger people are more and more interested in where their family came from. That's really good.
Do you get programs like Who Do You Think You Are coming to Germany to research the ancestors of either British or Canadian, American, or Australian stars that are featured in this show? Maybe you don't do it yourself, but have you heard of the film crews coming? I think maybe that would start to make people become interested in their own ancestry if they're seeing these film crews come in.
Yeah, but we also have that in Germany. So
you
we
do?
have our own German program. It's not Who Do You Think You Are, but we have that from different TV stars and singers, and very interesting, very, very interesting films.
Okay, so there could be a new wave of interest in genealogy and history. That's great.
It will. It's on its way. It's definitely. And also there's more and more available online. I mean, the stronger, the better the internet gets, the more documents we find, records we find online, the more the interest will come. So especially with the young people.
Is it fairly easy for someone in Germany to access historical documents, or are there government-imposed restrictions?
Yeah, it's privacy law, very strict privacy law. So it's not that easy. I mean, if you search the 19th century, that's not a problem at all. But as soon as you get into the 20th century, you really have to look what you find and what is available and accessible.
What has been the most challenging aspect of being a genealogy professional from a business point of view?
I think that you have to learn so fast and you have to make decisions and it's so sometimes you're a bit in the middle of nowhere because there's so few of us. That's what I found very challenging. You know, it's not like opening a store and you know exactly what to do. You know exactly how to do, what to buy and where to open the shop and everything. And in genealogy, the marketing is so different and you just can't put in an ad in a newspaper. That's not how it works. But you have to do some kind of guerrilla marketing, which I did in the beginning, and just send emails to everybody. Say, look, hi, here I am. Can I write something for you? Or, you have to just do it like that. And it worked. But you have to dare to do it. And you have to find out that that's the way how to do it.
I would imagine that one of the challenges, especially when you're first getting started, is just maintaining that sufficient workflow. I mean, we all deal with, money coming in spurts as opposed to every Friday, Yeah. and that, I think, until you get your groove and perhaps establish some bigger or longer term clients, it might be hard to just keep that pace going, pushing all the time to develop the business.
Yeah, it's hard work. It's really working, and really being patient and say it will work out in the end. Yeah, it's hard. I didn't think it would be that hard in the beginning, but it was worth working so hard. And it's fun. It's very, very rewarding, and that keeps you going.
In the United States, we do a lot of volunteer work for better or for worse. Do you have opportunities like that in Germany, or doesn't it really come into your professional life?
Well, I do some pro bono cases every once in a while. When I know that the client, or when I'm sure that the client doesn't have too much money, but it's very important, like if they look for their parents. And I just feel like doing that. And then I don't charge for everything. If I do Holocaust research, I charge less or nothing, depending on what it is I can do. Because I just find this is just something, being German, that needs to be done. And then I do, for the group for the German genealogy group, and I help. But I don't have some kind of a plan of I'm doing this and that amount of work pro bono or so.
This is kind of a non sequitur, but I just want to go back to the Upside Down book for a second.
Mm-hmm.
The journalist that contacted you from Boston, how did she discover you? Of all the historians in Germany, how did she find you?
I think it was through the APG.
Interesting. So she went to the directory there?
Yes.
And she found you that way? Oh,
yes. A lot of people do.
Interesting. What is the most fun project that you've ever worked on that you can share with us?
I think I love them all. It's mainly because of my clients who are so very nice, and then it's so much fun. But I think, of course, the Upside Down book, I mean, seeing what becomes of your research as a film, and I was interviewed, and I mean, wow, who has the chance to see himself on the big screen, so to say. So that was really exciting. It was a fun work. I can't really say that there is any kind of special case because every research project is so special. They're so, I don't know, the people are so interesting, and it's so interesting to go into their lives and see what they experienced. So I can't really say that one is better than the other.
Let's take a quick break to hear a message from the Association of Professional Genealogists.
Hi, I'm Kathy Damaris, the Vice President of the Association of Professional Genealogists. The very first step I made towards my career as a genealogy professional was to join APG. At that time, the idea of researching for clients was just the spark of an idea in my mind. My APG membership brought me into contact with the best minds in the field and helped me learn about the array of educational opportunities available and the steps I needed to take to reach my goal. My first clients found me through the APG membership directory, and many of my clients still find me there. After a lot of education and hard work, I now have a full-time career as a professional genealogist. My membership in APG is one of my most valuable business assets. If you are thinking about a career in genealogy, I hope you'll join us too. Please visit us on the web at apgen.org, apgen.org.
All right, Ursula, we're going to change things up now. We're going to quicken the pace, and we're going to enter the lightning round. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. What was the one thing you were most afraid of in starting your business?
Oh, no customers. And I was a bit afraid of that my language skills wouldn't be sufficient. So, but that worked out in the end. But Americans are so very nice and kind, and
Canadians are nicer, they say.
Are they?
Well, that's what
Australians are very nice as well.
Canadians have the nicest reputation.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying that Americans aren't nice, but
no, and they are nice. They are really nice.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Somebody said, "Well, why don't you write stories then?"
And you said, "Good idea."
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
What is one specific action listeners can take in the next 24 hours to help them transition into a genealogy career?
I don't know. I don't really think. I think that this transition is something that has to do with personal development, and you can't really force it or give some advice. It will come. You will know when you're ready.
I'm going to disagree with you on that. You have to force it. You have to force it. You have to do it. There are things you got to do. So I'm going to draw on your experience, and I'm going to toss out some answers for you. Okay?
Okay.
So if I were you, so I'm Ursula now. Ursula would have said, get active in some Facebook groups. Talk to the people who are interested in your subject. There. How's that?
That sounds good.
Or get active in a genealogical society like the German group.
If you don't feel that it's right, it doesn't get right.
Yes, but if you're in business and you never feel that it's right, you shouldn't be in business, and then you should make the decision to get another career.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
if you don't like going on Facebook, or you say that I don't write, as a principle, I do not like to write, and I don't like to communicate with clients either, but I love genealogy, you might end up with a bit of a problem.
Well, that person should become an author who writes books.
Exactly.
I think sometimes you have to put yourself in situations that are uncomfortable to determine that you don't want to do it. Like when I was in college and I worked at a bank and I absolutely hated it. And I learned a really valuable lesson. I learned that I never wanted to work in a bank again.
Yeah. But I remember when I think in your biography, when you started with house history, I think that then you know that this is something I want to do for people.
I hope that people get to that point. I understand some people have a little bit of trouble, and we're working on this on the show and with the webinars and stuff, finding your niche, finding that place that makes you feel most comfortable and most valuable.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the hard part with it. There are skills you can learn, and that will come. I mean, it's better if you can do it before, but those you will develop and you will grow in your job. But if you don't have this fire inside of you, this light that will lead you through dark times, so to say, you can have the best of skills. It's not enough.
I'm wondering, thinking about this whole passion thing, this fire thing, if this is something that is taught to us when we're children, whether our parents perhaps are blowing the flame to make the fire big or they're discouraging us, because it always shocks me when people say, I'm not passionate about anything. And I'm like, how can you not be passionate about anything? I'm passionate about everything in my life, Yeah. I mean, from the minute I wake up, I'm just passionate until I go to sleep. And I have my best friend, she's not particularly passionate about things like I am. And does that come from our childhood? Are we taught not to get fired up about things?
Well, I think it's probably also a difference between Germany and America. I think America is much more that what you can do. There are much more possibilities. And in Germany, it's like, do you really think that that's right? And just think about it. And why leave a safe job? And I think that, first of all, it's something that you were born with. I think there are people who burn for everything, and there are people who never do. And they become clerks somewhere and are absolutely happy and live the best life ever. It's just something I think some people burn and some people don't. But of course it is how you were brought up. If you live with people, if your parents are people who always tell you to try things and you are able to develop your skills, then of course it's easier. For me, it was when I was a lawyer is that I'm highly gifted and I could never really work the way that my brain wanted to work. And now I found a way, this is how my brain wants to do the job, so to say. So
you're not fighting it anymore. You're working with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I always had to be stupid, so to say. And now it's great. I can do whatever I want to, and not in the meaning of behave like whatever, but just work the way, and my brain can develop. Every day I learn something new. And that's the great thing with genealogy.
Do you have a productivity tool or an app that you love that you can share with our audience?
Well, I love Excel sheets, as a matter of fact. They're so nice to work with. I have my customer lists on Excel, and I do some statistics about where I go to do research and where my clients come from, so that I know. And I do everything with Excel. Okay. So I'm very fond of that, actually.
What is your preferred social media channel?
Facebook and my blog, or reading blogs.
If you can recommend one book for our listeners, what would it be?
Oh, well, of course, I could name several books in German. I have a great German-English genealogical dictionary.
Okay, give us that one.
Which I use a lot, from Ernest Tode, or Thode, maybe you would pronounce him. That's a great book. I use it a lot when I do translations. But I would like to draw your attention to historical maps. I love maps, the old maps, in a lower scale, so that you can really see every house. It's like Google Street looks. You can really go and see every house, and you can see the town with the manor and the small houses around it and the church. And these are really great maps.
Is there a source for that? Where would we find those?
They are online. More and more of them are online. The old historical maps. They're called Messtischblätter.
So you're gonna email that to me, right?
Yeah, I can.
There's no way I'd be able to spell that.
I wrote something actually on my blog about Messtischblätter.
All right, send me the link. Send me the link to that blog post, and I'll include that.
Yes, I will.
Great.
I will, because that's very interesting, and they're very pretty. Actually, a lot of people have them hanging at their wall, so you can really see, and especially when we're talking about the towns that are now situated in Poland or Russia, and we can really go back to how they looked then. Many of them vanished. The small villages that were just some kind of estate and 10 houses, they just vanished with communism, where they just destroyed the manorial house or the entire estate. So the farm helpers simply moved. So there's nothing left. They're very valuable, old map.
Now let's do something called Quick Tips from the Pros, with you, of course, being the pro. And since storytelling is one of your passion, why don't you give our audience 3 quick tips for how they can develop storytelling within the work that they do?
First of all, you need to love to write. If you don't have that, and you have to have certain communication skills, so writing skills, you need to be able to focus or to have an idea of who you are talking about, writing about, to kind of, I always say, to meet the person, to have a picture, visualize this person, how they look and what they wore and such, to really meet them. And then you just need to write. Just practice, and you will find a way that suits you and that suits the person you're talking about. It just comes, I think.
Ursula, give our audience one parting piece of advice and then tell us how we can get in contact with you.
There's so many of my colleagues already gave so many good pieces of advice. I want to focus on these statistics of that you really see where your customers come from and where you should focus your marketing on, or where you want to go to, where the customers didn't come from yet, and also which archives you go. For example, here in Germany, there are so much more sources that are online now, and also in Poland. So our business changes. So how do you adapt to that? And so you have some numbers you can work with that give you important information. You can get in touch with me through my website, which is rootseekers.com, or through my blog, which is rootseekers.com/blog, or through my Facebook page, which is called Rootseekers. I have a Twitter account as well, but I don't really Twitter.
Ursula Krause, thank you so much for coming on the Genealogy Professional Podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me.
That was a fascinating interview with Ursula Krause. We learned about being a genealogy professional from the point of view of someone who lives in what we consider the old country and who typically targets foreign clients outside of Germany. It's interesting for all of us colonials to hear the perspective of folks who aren't as interested in learning about their family history just because they've always been surrounded by it. Ursula's involvement with The Journalist and the subsequent documentary film remind us that we should always be thinking outside the box when it comes to finding clients. Journalists and authors are great potential clients. Ask yourself, how am I going to make myself findable to these types of clients? Ursula's comments also remind us that we should be sensitive when dealing with the feelings of people in other countries, particularly in regards to more recent wars like World War I and World War II. The way Americans feel about World War II is very different than the way Germans do. So when we're interacting either with clients or researchers that we hire to do work for us, we just need to keep in mind that they might be more sensitive about certain topics. She also showed us that reaching out and getting involved can be profitable. Ursula is finding many of her clients because of her volunteer work with writing a column in a journal and by interacting with groups in her niche on Facebook. Before I give you an action item, I'd like to bring you up to date on some news. Despite the fact that I've been quieter the last few months, I've been busy planning things behind the scenes. In December, I held a Setting Business and Marketing Goals for 2015 workshop. I got such a tremendous response that I actually added a second day. The Friday-Saturday combo worked particularly well for people who needed to make last-minute schedule changes and could flip to the other day. This workshop was right before Hanukkah and Christmas, so it was not great timing for everyone. So I have added 2 more dates for the end of January, for Friday, January 23rd, and Saturday, January 24th. This is an online workshop that's being held through the use of GoToMeeting. So let me tell you a little bit more about this workshop. I chose this as a workshop format because I wanted it to be about you. Webinars are great, but they are more general, and the follow-up is easy to procrastinate. In this webinar, we focus on action items that will positively impact your goals and your business. The workshop is 3 hours long. In the first hour, we talk about how to create the right kind of goals and what will make them successful. In the second hour, we do a bunch of activities to make it specifically about your business. And in the third hour, we create action plans that keep you focused and on task so that your goals will be successful. If you'd like more information on the workshop, you can go to the website, thegenealogyprofessional.com, or go to Facebook and click on the shop link. Now for your action item. Since it's the new year, we are given a very obvious task. Regardless of whether you want to do the workshop or not, your action item this week is to write down your business goals for 2015. Don't leave them in your head. Write them down and post that paper on your wall near your computer where you sit most of the day so that you can see it every day and be reminded of what your target is and what you want to accomplish. What are your goals going to be, and how are you going to make them happen? All right, that's it for now. Until next time, so long.